Welcome to the United Methodist Student Day podcast. We're counting down to the last Sunday of November, so together we can empower students who will make a difference around the world. Thanks for joining us and for supporting the next generation.
Well, welcome to the United Methodist Student Day podcast. Super excited to have you along with us today, to have us in your earbuds. Today we have a student from UPenn, Nittany Lions. Super excited to have Irene Hong with us today. Irene, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No, I'm so glad you're here. Hey, so what are you studying at UPenn?
I'm studying political science, and I'm a second year, so a few more years to go.
Nice. That's cool. Now, why political science? Why did you decide you wanted to study that?
Well, law school is something that I'm interested in, and I think that I could really use law to impact people's lives in a positive way, and definitely volunteering with the church in high school created the sense of civic engagement and the importance of giving back. So I think that political science is a cool way to do so by kind of from the top, affect policy, and hopefully create an impact that way.
Very cool. That's very cool. Why don't you tell us about your church background? What was kind of your how did your kind of United Methodist background impact you today?
Sure. So I grew up in the United Methodist Church. My father is United Methodist pastor, so definitely familiar with all that, I guess.
Right.
And I guess being exposed to different ethnic backgrounds as well in the church. So I was part of churches where name any ethnicity, they are their kind of churches.
Oh, very
so
cool.
A Japanese American church to a Korean church, but definitely seeing that common thread of just loving each other, I think, was really something that was very beneficial to me.
Very cool. Now, what you mentioned, right off the top that there was, some kind of civic engagement, at your, in your background. Give us a sense of what that was. What did your church do when you were young that kind of said, hey, that's maybe a part of what Christ followers should do?
I think something that I really appreciated throughout high school, starting in sophomore year when I went to my most recent church, was our church every Sunday will go to the downtown part of our city, and we'll help serve food. But besides that, we'll also assist in the homeless community in getting sleeping bags or extended bus passes, referrals to local agencies, for instance, like anti-domestic violence agencies, further food pantries, things like that. And my role in that was to translate. So I translated between Korean, my church was Korean, so translating with the elderly folk, and then Spanish for the community. And that's something that really shaped me, because I realized that, hey, there's people come from different places and have a different background. Just because you're on the streets doesn't mean that you're a bad person right away.
Absolutely. Wow, so do you speak English, Korean, and Spanish?
My Spanish kind of deteriorated over the 2 years I was here, but...
Right. That's amazing, though. That's fantastic. What a great that's great. What a great way to use those skills to make a difference and impact in your community. So now, how's your school experience been so far? What are some kind of fun things that have happened, or kind of most memorable experiences so far being at UPenn?
I know this is kind of corny, but I think being in college, I realized that there's so many more resources here than I expected there would be than in high school.
Okay, cool.
So even with the law school planning, for instance, there's advisors you can speak to. There's seminars on like how do you write an essay, and there's people whose job it is to just like give you support and really encourage you. So I think that's very helpful. Shows that we do have funding, which is nice, to be confident in the school's resources.
Nice, very cool. So now, how did you first hear about the United Methodist Student Day, scholarship?
I actually heard from my youth group, and I did attend CalPAC's Youth Day once, actually a few times when I was in middle school. Okay. So something that had always been in the back of my mind, and once I started applying to college, I was like, oh, this is something that I should probably pursue. Very
cool. Now, what was the application process like? Did you find it, difficult? What did you find that like?
Oh yeah, definitely. Not difficult. It was actually much easier than I thought it would be, because the questions were not tell us why you want our money and why. It was very how has the church supported your upbringing? How can this scholarship help you in what you're studying? So definitely, I thought that the questions really helped to get to know me, and I didn't really feel that I was super stressful or anything like that.
Right. Oh, that's cool. That's good to hear. I think particularly for donors when they, that to hear, how was it from a student's perspective on actually receiving the funds, because they obviously don't want to create some onerous process, a good process, but not an onerous process to, end up distributing these funds. So that's fantastic. Now, let's say, there's churches that are listening in today that they don't celebrate United Methodist Student Day. They're like, it's just not a part of our thing. It's like we're busy when it comes around to that time of year. What would you say to a church leader who's kind of listening in today, who's on the fence, not sure whether they should celebrate or really put some focus on that this year?
I think one of the biggest things to support United Methodist Student Day is, number one, the fact that you can appreciate the youth in a really tangible way, and financially is like a huge way that I think the church can support. But also, with so many people leaving the church when you go to college, I think that a scholarship is one way saying, hey, you went to college, we haven't forgotten about you.
Oh, yeah, very true.
So I think that definitely United Methodist Student Day is so important in helping students feel worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. I think that's a great point. I think a lot of churches are trying to find practical ways to connect with students when they go to college, and this is a great way to do that for sure. So now when you look to the future, you say, here's some places I want to make a difference in, I want to make some impact. What are your dreams? What are you thinking, hey, you'd like to make a difference in the world? And how is kind of your current vocation, you kind of talked a little bit about this off the top, but how is your current schooling kind of helping for that?
Yeah, so in terms of a career, what I like, again, pretty open-minded, not too sure, but I definitely want to do something related to the community. Mm-hmm. I know that's super vague, but I know that through college, at least what I'm involved in, is right now I'm pursuing an independent study with one of my professors about food stamps and how the food stamp program has certain barriers to accessibility in Philadelphia. So, for instance, if Philadelphia has one of the highest eligibility rates and poverty rates for food stamp program, yet only like a third of them actually apply, and even less of them finish the application process and actually get the food stamp. So it's like, what are the barriers to that?
Wow.
And and some researching into ways to kind of alleviate that. So that's something that I think is really cool, and I'll be done with that project by the end of the semester. Come up with some kind of paper or something. But that is something that I'm really interested in. It brings in policy, but it also brings in something that people connect with on a daily basis. So I'm hoping something in that arena. I know that didn't really
No, that's good. No, that makes sense for sure. You still have a ways to go, and obviously, you're on the front end of the experience. So that's great. I think one of the things that's great about United Methodist Student Day is it's a chance for churches to partner with people like you to say, like, wow, what a practical way that someone who has been a part of the United Methodist Church can make a difference, even in something like food stamps, to understand that, which is fantastic. So changing tack a little bit, kind of as we come to the end here. Let's say there's a student out there who's thinking about UPenn. This is the time of year where students are trying to wrestle through where they should go. Why would you say UPenn's the place to go?
I think UPenn is the place to go because there is so much diversity on campus, in a city that's even more diverse. And I think the fact that on any given day you're not going to say, oh, I'm bored, there's nothing to do. Right. There's Chinatown, a subway right away. There's nice kind of prissy shopping, like the whole like Coach and Louis Vuitton. You can kind of look in there and be like, wow, this is so nice.
Right.
You can there's countless student organizations on campus. I definitely think that because this campus is so big, people might be intimidated, but you can always find your smaller community on campus within that bigger community. So I definitely would support Penn. Go Quakers, yeah.
Nice. That's fantastic. What and are you involved in any kind of student groups, any, that kind of stuff on campus?
The primary groups I'm part of are Korean Student Association. So my role in there is member relations chair. So I kind of connect the freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, and like family groups and coordinate events, things like that. And I'm also involved in the community outreach and engagement branch of our International Affairs Association. So what we do is we teach students in West Philadelphia, because we're in West Philadelphia right now, about a certain area of the world each year. So this year it's MENA, so Middle East and Northern Africa. And we teach we go to the school actually and teach it. So we go 3 separate times.
Cool.
First time about like econ, second time politics, things like that, and then we bring them to our campus in second semester for like a 1-day simulation, and it's free of charge, which is why we really encourage schools of all backgrounds to really try it out and get a taste of what it's like to be on a college campus, learn current events about an area of the world, and realize that, wow, like my world extends beyond Philadelphia.
Very cool. Well, that's great. Well, I appreciate you being on the show today. Is there anything else you'd love to share with our listeners today that might be listening in?
One thing, I think definitely if you're a student and you're scared to apply because it's like 3 essays, I would say go for it, honestly. What can you lose? Just like put a few hours of your time. Just try it out, and you never know what's going to happen.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Irene, for being on the show today. All the best with your studies, and thanks so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. See, that was great. That was painless.
Thank you for joining us for the United Methodist Student Day podcast. We want your church to join us for this special Sunday that supports our next generation of leaders. Drop by umcgiving.org for more information on how to get involved.